Welcome to Before the Score, episode number 34. I'm Steve Samra. This is our NFL preview special, one of my favorite episodes of the year. First time we ever get to do this. I'm very excited for this. Pablo Hernandez, I know you're not a big football fan, but you're not in a good mood today no matter what, because the Yankees are just look at the background. You can see, if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, you don't see Pablo is in a graveyard right now because that's where the Yankees season is going to end up. Pablo, let's hear this legendary rant you've been promising the people.
Well, all right, Steve. Number one, welcome back to Before the Score. I wish we were here under better circumstances. I wish I can tell you that the Yankees, are in first place and they hold a comfortable margin over the Rays or whatever team. But the Yankee team is just so miserable. This team is among one of the worst Yankee teams that I have seen in a very long time. I mean, where can I even start with this team? I'm going to break it down for you right here. Number one, this is the biggest number one. The Yankees, in my opinion, Brian Cashman, he gave up on this organization. He gave up on this franchise when he didn't make not even one move at the trade deadline. Yeah. Do you remember when I've been talking about, or even on Twitter, I've been saying, you know what, the Yankees they're a pretty good team, but you see them a little by little, they're starting to lose guys. They're starting to lose guys to injury. You have guys going out on the COVID. It hasn't been not really for the Yankees, but you just seen like the Yankees just losing so many people to injury. And the people that they're bringing up, or the people that they think they have depth with, are just not doing anything for this organization. You're telling me they couldn't add not even one guy for the rotation. They couldn't add not even one bullpen piece. They couldn't add not even one backup infielder, not one outfielder. They couldn't even add anything. All they did was just stand pat and say, you know what? Well, we're just waiting. We have a few guys that are injured to come back. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter if they come back, because by the time they do come back, the Yankees are going to be so far under 500. I mean, what are they already? In third place right now? The Orioles are about to pass them in their own division. I don't believe it. And that's not the only problem. Look, they're not getting any production from their catcher spot. They're not getting any production out of shortstop. They're not getting any production out of the outfield, out of 2 out of 3 outfield spots. I don't even know who their DH is. Oh my God, they've been abysmal. Garrett Cole, I understand it's a 60-game season, and I understand every fan had huge hopes for this guy. But, I mean, the last 3 starts, he has just been And don't even get me started with the Yankee bullpen, man. This Yankee bullpen is terrible. The Yankees have leads in games, and you think we're going to win. We give it up every single night. What about the other night? We had Deivi Garcia. He's pitching really well, and honestly, I wanted to come on here and do a live reaction. I feel like we should do that whenever these things happen to the Yankees. Deivi Garcia, the Yankees called him up. He's one of their top pitching prospects. He's been pitching pretty well. The other night, he's pitching all right. He gets himself into a tough situation. He's near 100 pitches. He just gave up a base hit, a hard base hit. So it was first and second in the 5th inning, 2 outs, and he's facing Ryan Mountcastle. Ryan Mountcastle, he had 2 hits off of him. He hit him very well. So the Yankees, I do see what they're thinking in terms of, taking this kid out, because you don't want him to get hit by a guy who's already hit him twice in the game. But the Yankee bullpen has been so bad that I just think whether or not Deivi Garcia, whether or not he gives it up, that's on him. If he gives it up, he gives it up. The Yankees turn to a guy in Clark Schmidt, a guy I'm super excited about. And Clark Schmidt, how do you make your major league debut with guys on first and second? This guy is not a starter. He's a reliever. I don't understand what Aaron Boone is doing. It's like the Yankees as an organization, they took a giant step backwards. Their bullpen, oh my God, I'm sick and tired of it, bro. Aside from 3 guys in their lineup, they haven't seen anything in the last few weeks. This team is so bad. And you know what? I'm going to make one last analogy for you. The New York Yankees, to me, they're playing a game of Monopoly right now, right? So right now, they rolled the dice. They went all the way around the board, picking up pieces here, pieces there. They land on Park Place. Park Place is a good piece. They roll the dice. They land on Chance. Advance to Boardwalk. All right. So now you have 2 of the biggest pieces in the game, and you're looking to dominate. But meanwhile, you have piece here, piece there. And then you have other players that are struggling. Other players, they don't have any sets, but it might have one green, they might have one red, they might have one orange. And you, as a Monopoly player, not only do you have the two blues, you have the two green. And if you just made one move, you could have a whole set of green. So you would have a whole sidewalk full of properties. But you know what? What they're doing? Now we're good. We think we can hang with the pieces that we have. Meanwhile, the teams that aren't doing too well, the guys with the yellow piece and with the one green piece, they're selling off to other players who think they can turn their game around. And by the Yankees not doing anything, they're just sitting back with the two blue pieces, just waiting and waiting and waiting. Meanwhile, they're seeing other guys get back into the game, other guys, making money because you're landing on their pieces. The Yankees are playing a bad game of Monopoly right now. And honestly, if I were in this game, I'd just go bankrupt because this New York Yankee team sucks. This is the worst New York Yankee team I've seen in the last 2 to 3 years. And I don't even know. They're not that good. They're not horrible, but they're right in between. They're just so.
Pablo, it must be nice to be that depressed about a team that's one game over 500, isn't it? You get crocodile tears from anybody else who's not a Yankees fan. You Yankee fans are the most vocal sons of bitches I hear all offseason. You just signed the best pitcher in the league. Guess what? He wasn't the best pitcher in the league because the best pitcher in the league is still in New York, but he's on the Mets. And then all I hear all offseason about how great the Yankees are going to be, how they got their missing piece, how they're going to go to the World Series. Guess what? You made some bad investments. You invested in Giancarlo Stanton, who cannot stay healthy to save his life. Aaron Judge looks like he's going down the same road. I'm sorry to say the bad game of Monopoly wasn't because you had the two best pieces in the game and didn't add more. You invested in the wrong pieces. The pieces don't matter if they're not on the field. And your best piece, Garrett Cole, he's getting shelled every time he's out there. So I have crocodile tears, Pablo. I'm telling you.
Well, Steve, I'm going to tell you something else. Number one, this 2020 season, in my eyes, it should just. I wish it would just go away.
Now it doesn't count, right?
2021, because this entire season is a waste. And I'm going to bring out the rant because I know exactly what you're talking about. Not only is this game 60 games, right, which is already 60-game season. I understand what they had to do. 60-game season. You go. There's a stupid 7-inning rule in doubleheaders, which is the stupidest thing I have ever seen. There should never be 7-inning games in baseball. That is a softball rule. And then you go to extra innings and you start off a guy on second? What is that stupid rule? Not only that, you have guys going out because of the COVID. You have guys going out because one player, a coach who somehow came in contact with one of the players. So then the two teams, they don't play for a whole week, delaying the entire season, adding to more double headers. I don't understand. Not only are the Yankees a bad team, they are a team that cannot survive in a 60-game season because all their guys are very strong. All their guys, they're very strong-bodied and they're very weak. They can't keep up with a team like the Padres. They can't keep up with a team like the Rays or the Oakland A's, a team that's very young, a young athletic group who might not have the biggest stars, but they stay on the field and they perform way over expectations. A team like the New York Yankees, they will never go anywhere in a 60-game stretch. This team is done.
You're only saying this because the Yankees are looking at – this is the worst-case scenario for the Yankees, so this is why you say this season doesn't matter. This season is so stupid how the rules and how everything is playing out. But if the Yankees were in the shape of the Dodgers, if they're, performing to expectations where they should be the most dominant team in the league, if Garrett Cole was pitching lights out and bidding for an AL Cy Young, you would not be complaining about this not nearly as much. I get it. The Yankees, the 2020 Yankees and the 2019 Yankees have the same recipe for success. Both years they have major guys go down for injury. And the Yankees in 2019, it didn't phase them. It's like whoever you put in their lineup, whoever you put on the mound was touched with gold last year. Doesn't matter what no name you put out there, no Mike Talkmans, Mike Fords. Those guys were stepping up and they were winning you games when no one expected to. Gio Urshela came out of nowhere last year. These guys just aren't doing the same thing this year. It's hard to do that multiple years in a row where the next man up mentality kind of carries you for months at a time. When it's a 60-game season, every game means so much, and you're not getting that same kind of replacement level play from guys like Mike Talkman, Mike Ford. Garrett Cole is not living up to expectations. Paxton has pitched 2 games like all year. They just can't survive in a 60-game season when you can't trust them to stay on the field. You look at guys who might be underperforming this year, and you can live with that because they're on the field and they're still giving you some sort of production. These superstars for the Yankees, outside of DJ LeMahieu, no one's really stepping up. No big key guy is doing what they should be. I mean, Luke Voigt, but even Luke Voigt lately hasn't been really carrying the load. He had a really nice stretch, but he's been kind of cold right now, and that lineup isn't built to sustain their key stars going into slumps. They can't survive without Luke Voigt being what he was for the month of August.
Do you know what another thing is? And Steve, I'm going to interrupt you because I know you have a lot to say. The Yankees last year, they overachieved, especially with the very just random players that they had on the field. It didn't make sense that they were doing so well with all these injuries. But like I said, that is a full 162-game season. You could go into a stretch like the Yankees are right now. If we were in a season like last year and, they were, 2 games over 500, yeah, I'd be mad, but I wouldn't be so down in the dumps. But when you are a team that has such a core group of players, such guys that, this is a year where I expected to win. This is a year where I expected to really be competitive. And you don't add anything to that. You don't do anything. You call up guys like Davy Garcia and you call up guys like Clark Schmidt. I understand that. But you should have made some type of move. And in the offseason, besides getting Garrett Cole, obviously the Yankees needed to get Garrett Cole because they didn't have any big pitchers. They needed Garrett Cole. But they didn't add anything else. Their roster got worse. They didn't do anything in the offseason aside from getting the number 1 pitcher. Now, I'm not expecting them to go out there and sign Anthony Rendon as well, but they should have done some minor moves. They should have, this team needs a lot of work. And I don't know. You can't even blame Rothschild because they got a new pitching coach. And is he just as bad? He might even be worse. This Yankee pitching is so bad.
But what they missed out on the offseason is they never got those reliable replacement pieces, but they're trusting guys that came up and stepped up last year, these young guys who are really still unproven, to kind of replicate what they did last year if they had to come to those starting opportunities. You didn't get any veteran presence. You didn't get any Cameron Mabins and guys like that to kind of, they might not be the greatest starters, but if you need them for a week or two when one of your stars is down, you can count on them a little bit more than whoever they're trotting out right now, like the Tyler Wades of the world.
Yeah, Pablo, let's move on from the Yankees here because I don't want you to be sad the rest of the show. I want you to get out of the graveyard right now.
Don't get me started on Tyler Wade. That guy sucks.
Yeah, we're not going to get you started on him. Andrew, you have anything to say about the Mets before we get into our NFL special?
The Mets, it's the same thing as last year. Like, they have flashes where they can compete with any team in the league when their offense is clicking and their pitching steps up to what they should be. Guys like Jacob deGrom on the mound, Seth Lugo on the mound, and then when Diaz is pitching well like he has been lately, like they can compete with any team, but they just can't get that for 5 days in a row because they don't have any depth in rotation. If you're putting Rick Porcello, Michael Wacha, David Peterson, or whatever spot starter they have out there, they don't have a chance in a lot of these games. So I can't trust them in any playoff series. That's why I don't have a lot of hope for them because even if they get hot with their stars in the mound, outside of those games, and they shouldn't win these games against top teams.
Also, three or 4 games out. I don't even know, 5 games out. They're pretty far out right now.
They're 2 out of a wild card spot.
Yeah, and it's not been promising with the rotation. The rotation looking the way it is. I think you just put Steven Matz back in the rotation right now and hope he pitches his way out of it. Just him sitting on the sidelines is disappointing for me for a guy who looked so good in his first start. And Jacob deGrom, this guy needs a chance to pitch in the postseason again. He's been lights out for 3 years plus now. On his way to his 3rd straight Cy Young if he can get his ERA a little bit lower than Yu Darvish's. Hopefully Yu Darvish gets rocked a couple games later in the season. But deGrom, he's just been phenomenal in every single start this season. And I just would be very disappointed to not see him get a chance to pitch in the playoffs under this amazing run that he's in.
Hey, Steve, can I ask you a question? What are your current thoughts on Marcus Stroman?
Marcus Stroman, my boy, I really do like him as a player. I was disappointed with the way he handled things with the whole coronavirus. We went on about that.
I understand. don't you think a guy like Marcus Stroman would be very needed in the rotation, especially with aside from Jacob deGrom has been very questionable. A guy like Marcus Stroman, he gave up on the Mets. He gave up on his teammates. He gave up on the fan base because he's a weak-minded player. And that's something where if I'm a team looking at Marcus Stroman in the offseason, I take that into account.
Well, Marcus Stroman.
Player.
Stroman, want to know who they could use a lot right now? A guy named Zach Wheeler, who was under contract last year, who they could have extended and did not want to keep because they loved their rotation depth.
Oh yeah, a guy like Zach Wheeler, who they didn't want to trade, but then they didn't even
want to keep.
Give any type of effort into bringing him back. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
That's on ownership and that's on Brody.
Doesn't make sense.
Hey, Pablo, let me borrow that graveyard background for this segment because this is what it's turning into. You're depressing me a little too much right now. The Mets hitting has been phenomenal. The Mets have the highest batting average as a team in the entire league.
They just can't hit runners on.
They can't with runners on.
They can't hit in clutch moments, and it took them too late. It took them too long in the season to kind of click.
It took until Todd Frazier got there to click. Never should get rid of him.
All I'm saying is I think we got to get Frank the Tank back on before the score to complete our four-man booth. And I just want to hear a entire hour segment long on what he thinks about the Mets.
Yeah, we'll have him on eventually, I'm sure. But let's move on from baseball today. This show is the football special. Pablo, you're going to have to bear with us for this show. NFL is back. We're excited. And we're going to start out with our Week 1 predictions because you don't want to give away the good stuff all yet. Week 1 predictions. First game next Thursday. Houston at Kansas City. Who you got?
Now, this is the game that Chiefs are at home, which it doesn't really matter this season. There's not going to be a crazy Arrowhead advantage like there would be last year. So this game might be a little bit closer than people think. I just have a hard time trusting what the Texans are doing on offense. They got rid of DeAndre Hopkins. They replaced them with Brandon Cooks and David Johnson. So they should be fine. Deshaun Watson will do enough on his own to kind of keep them somewhat in the game. But the Chiefs are just such a complete team. Patrick Mahomes is going to prove why he's the greatest quarterback on the planet and is why he's worth every penny of his $500 million. So
Pablo, you go second.
I'd say I just have to agree with Drewski there. I really don't have much comment on this. The topic just took so much out of me.
We should have ended with that.
Well, the Kansas City Chiefs, they'll win Week 1. They're going to cover. They're going to win. Houston, I'm not going to give them much of a shot. I hope it's a good game, but I think Kansas City walks out with a W, walks out of their own stadium. Sunday, NFL Sunday, Seattle at Atlanta.
Pablo, you want to start this off? Your Seattle Seahawks.
Atlanta Falcons. What can I say about the Atlanta Falcons? Number one, they've been going in a downward spiral ever since their tragic and fatal loss to the
Patriots.
to the Pittsburgh
Pittsburgh Patriots.
to the New England Patriots. I'm sorry, I was thinking about the Steelers. To the New England Patriots.
I thought that's kind of who I figured you were thinking about.
Yeah, this team, aside from Julio, they don't have much going.
Julio.
Are
you okay?
We need to sit a couple games out. Me and Steve will go about this for a few games.
Who's Julio?
Julio Jones, dude.
Oh man, Pablo, that Yankee segment really took a lot out of you. Who's winning the game? Who's winning the game?
Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, Andrew.
See, I don't know why the line is so not in favor of the Seahawks. On paper, the Seahawks have so much better of a roster than the Falcons do. But I think the Falcons are going to be a sneaky good team this year. I think their offense isn't going to miss a beat. They got rid of Austin Hooper, but they have Hayden Hurst who should fill those shoes. They brought in Todd Gurley, who you really can't trust to stay healthy because he's glass knees. But, I mean, it's an improvement over whoever the hell they were trotting out last year, half the year when Devonta Freeman was hurt. So there'll be a lot of points in this game. Fuck Jamal Adams, so the Falcons are going to win.
Hey, yo.
That would be Ito Smith and Brian Hill and Quandre Allison.
Yeah,
it was ugly who they were trotting out. But I think that the Falcons are going to win. And I think the Falcons are one of the most underrated teams in the entire NFL. They still have a great offense. Calvin Ridley's going to get their first shot at being the real number 2. Todd Gurley, I think, is out to prove people wrong. And I think Matt Ryan's still a great quarterback.
Yeah.
Seattle, I've never seen Seattle go into Atlanta and win. Atlanta really has their number, and I think the Falcons are going to win this game. Next game on the schedule, classic week 1 matchup. Jets-Bills, 1 o'clock. Was there ever any doubt? Andrew, who you got?
I cannot wait for that opening ugly 1 p.m. CBS, whoever the hell they're going to put in the announcer's booth. This is a classic week 1 game. It's going to be a 16-13 finish. I don't like what the Bills are doing. I think they're really, really overrated this year. I like what they did with Diggs, but I don't trust that offense. I don't trust Josh Allen in particular. I don't think they had the craziest competition last year. I see a lot of hype around that team that I just don't see them living up to. In Buffalo, warm weather in Buffalo, so that there's no really home field advantage for the Bills. I have to take the Jets. I'm very pessimistic about the Jets this year for obvious reasons, but I say they squeak one out 16-13.
Well, I'll tell you something right now. I'm going to go with the Bills, and it doesn't have to do with the fact that they're playing home or the fact that Andrew picked the Jets. It just goes with the fact that they are a better team on the football field.
Okay.
I just like them from top to bottom, and I really don't know. Adam Gase has a lot to prove this season. Honestly, I don't know how you feel, Andrew, as a Jets fan. I feel like this is the year where he either puts up or shuts up. So that's it. That's how I feel on this.
He's had like 4 straight put up or shut up years, and he hasn't had a winning season.
Well, this is the year where the management has to look at him and actually determine whether or not he needs to stay or go, because I don't know. You don't want to be the New York Knicks. You don't want to be a team that every single year they bring a new head coach and, oh, yeah, I'm excited for this guy, and he's just as bad as the other one. So, I'm not a big fan of getting rid of coaches.
Adam Gase aside, this is a really big game for Sam Darnold. He needs to start off the season on a positive note. Each of the last 2 years, they've kind of gotten off on the wrong foot. Well, his rookie year, they won in Detroit, but then after that, they kind of went on a little downward roll. So they need to start off the year pretty consistently hot and just kind of build off of that. So if they lose week 1 and he has an embarrassing loss, that's going to be a rough season.
The Jets are 6.5-point underdogs in this game. I think the Jets are definitely going to cover this game because, like Andrew said, week 1, Jets-Bills, always gross games. Never even want to watch them. I tune in when it's on Red Zone. Last year, the Jets were up 16-0 to lose 17-16.
Can we not go into that today?
But I want to pick the Bills here. I think the Bills are going to be good this year. I don't know if they're going to be as good as people make them out to be. I don't think they're going to win the division, actually, but we'll get into that later. The New York Jets and Sam Darnold, as long as Sam Darnold's that quarterback, he has never lost in Buffalo. He's undefeated in Buffalo.
Well, last year they played the backups, but he had an impressive
win. Sam Darnold, I think, goes back into Buffalo and shocks the Bills. Week 1, everybody's sloppy. Nobody even knows he's playing wide receiver for the Jets.
It's still up in the air.
I think Jamison Crowder has a good game. Chris Herndon has a good game. I think the Jets win an ugly one. Yep. A very ugly game. So 2 out of 3 of us picking the Jets. I would not have expected that when you told me that a week ago. Chicago at Detroit.
Probably want to start us off here. All right. Chicago and Detroit. Number one, these two teams are not very good. The Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. The Bears will – man, this is tough, man. I'm probably going to have to go with the Bears here. I do feel slightly more comfortable about this team than the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions they're just not a very good football team. So that's what I'm going with.
I think both these teams are a little bit better than you're giving them credit for. You look 2 years ago, the Bears were one of the best teams in football. I think their offense will be better this year. If they can get some sort of running game going, I love Allen Robinson. I love Anthony Miller. I think Trubisky I think he's already named the week 1 starter. I think he has to have a better year than he did last year. So I think they will be a little bit improved. I still think their defense is good enough to keep them almost every game. I like the Lions offense as well. Carry-on's healthy. They have DeAndre Swift. Kenny Galladay's still a beast. So, this should be a sneaky, high-scoring game inside in Detroit. I do think the Chicago Bears win this game, though.
This is the NFC's version of the Jets and the Bills.
Yeah.
I think that the Chicago Bears are going to win this game because I think Mitchell Trubisky is going to have a bounce-back year this year. I think this is his make or break it year. It obviously is because if he doesn't win this year, if he win the job, and if he doesn't, his other two compadres from the draft, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, just became the two highest paid quarterbacks in the league. Who was picked before them? Mitchell Trubisky. It's his time to show out. He's not going to be on the level of Mahomes and Watson, but I think he'll be good, and I think the Bears will be better than people give him credit for. I think the loss of David Montgomery for the first couple of weeks will be tough on the Bears, but I think Cordell Patterson will fill in good. I think Ryan Nail is their other running back, but I think Anthony Miller
will kind of sneak in there a little bit.
Anthony Miller, my boy from Memphis, I think he's going to have a breakout season as well, and I think them two will develop a really good connection this year. So Bears win, so Bears obviously cover. Next game on the schedule, we have the Green Bay Packers. Shout out Uncle Bobby at the Minnesota Vikings. Shout out Dan. So who you got in that game?
This is a tricky game because the Vikings are tough to read because they let guys like Everson Griffin go. They traded away Stephon Diggs, cut Xavier Rhodes. So it's going to be a much different looking Vikings team. I don't know how I feel about the Packers. The Packers, they look like they have the exact same team as last year. They drafted Jordan Love. Hopefully that lights a fire under Aaron Rodgers' ass and he has the same kind of MVP kind of season that he's used to having. But then again, the Vikings, they should be fine with Dalvin Cook. I think Adam Thielen is enough. They drafted Justin Jefferson in the first round, so they shouldn't miss that much of a beat with Diggs gone. I do think the Vikings win this game. This is I think one of the tougher games to pick of the week, but I do think the Vikings win the game at home.
I'm gonna tell you what, Aaron Rodgers, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks in our generation, in our lifetime. I don't think he has much time as a superstar quarterback in this league. So I do think that this loss to the Minnesota Vikings is only going to start the downward spiral that is his career. So I do see the Minnesota Vikings coming out on top here.
In this game, I have the Green Bay Packers beating the Minnesota Vikings. I think both these teams actually had good off seasons. I think the Packers, they didn't get worse, is how you can put it. And sometimes that's all you can ask for in the NFL. And the Vikings, yes, they lost Stephon Diggs, but they picked up one of the most ferocious pass rushers in the NFL last week in Yannick Ngakoue. And I think he'll make a really big impact immediately. Packers, I wish you went out and got a wide receiver, but I think this will be a low-scoring game. You swept the Vikings last year, and I think you win 3 in a row. So I'm going with Green Bay here. Next game on the schedule, we have the Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots, the first game of the post-Tom Brady era for New England.
And so this is the exact same game that sort of ended the Patriots season last year. I know they lost to the Titans in the playoffs, but their last regular season game to knock them out of a first-round bye, they lost at home with their starters playing to the Miami Dolphins led by Ryan Fitzpatrick. So this is a game where you can't really count the Dolphins out. I did pick the Patriots in the survivor pool to win this week, so they have to be my kind of lock of the week. I hope so. I do think they'll get enough production out of Cam, and Josh McDaniels will kind of scheme up something where that offense can kind of get clicking. I know Damon Harris is probably going to be out week 1, but they still Sony Michel coming back. Edelman's still there. So, and their defense is still one of the top defenses in the league, so I think they'll do enough. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, the way he looked last year, week 1 against the Patriots, where they got blown out by like 40 points, I think it's going to be a little bit closer to that than it was week 17 last year.
This game, it's a very, very tough game. Obviously, the Patriots, they don't have Tom Brady anymore, and I'm not even going to bring up the fact that Gronk isn't there because he hasn't played there in a few years. But I do think that the Miami Dolphins do win here, and I can see it now. I can see the headline now. Patriots lose, 2 fish. Are the Patriots nothing without Tom Brady? That's going to be the headline in the paper after that game. So I'm going to give this one to the Dolphins here.
I'll tell you what, Pablo, part of what I went to school for, it didn't allow me. It was not – as a sports journalist, our one rule is that we cannot write our own headlines, and you would not be hired as a headline writer because that was bad. But one thing that won't be bad is the fit with Cam Newton in New England because I think he's going to be perfect. I love everything about this fit. Cam Newton and Bill Belichick, I've gone over it multiple times on this show, and I just really think that Cam Newton's going to have a really good bounce-back year, and I think he starts off with a big win against the Miami Dolphins. Next game on the schedule here, we have two teams that I don't really have an affinity for here. We have the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Washington to play the Washington football team. Who you got in that game, Andrew?
The Eagles, they have to win this game. They can't lose week 1 to the Washington football team
They can't lose to a no-name team. Is that what you're saying?
To a no-name team. The Eagles, they have playoff aspirations. They have a lot to prove. Carson Wentz has a lot to prove. Carson Wentz has been inconsistent when healthy, and then he also has not stayed healthy as much as he needs to be. The Eagles receivers are scaring me. Deshaun Jackson is their number one, and he's bound to leave in the middle of a game and leave him with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as their new number one receiver. Miles Sanders is a little banged up. They just lost their starting left tackle. I have bad vibes from the Eagles this year. I still don't trust their defense. I don't trust their secondary. But besides that, I don't think the Washington football team is talented at all. They cut Adrian Peterson the last week of the offseason. I just can't trust them to win. There's no home field advantage, so I think Philly goes into Washington and beats their football team.
I think personally this is going to be the easiest bet, the easiest gamble if you were to make a bet this week. The Eagles, they're a far superior team than the Washington football team. The Washington football team, they don't even have a name. They have zero identity. They have zero course of direction in terms of their franchise. Aside from, I do like their draft pick this season. I do think that kid is going to be very well. But I just don't think this team is any good. So I do see the Philadelphia Eagles going in there and winning.
The most overrated team in the entire NFL this year is the Philadelphia Eagles. Their number one wide receiver right now is Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson hasn't been a number one quality wide receiver since before he was even on the Washington football team. The Eagles have one of the worst offensive lines in the league this year coming up because it's so injured. And you're going to have to block Chase Young, Ryan Kerrigan, Matt Ioannidis. The Redskins have a pretty good defense, pretty good defensive line.
Is solid.
Front seven is very good. And I think their offense is actually a little underrated because I like Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, of course. I really like Steven Sims Jr. I think he can be a good player in this league, but he's a little undersized. But I think that he can really show out. He can stretch the field really well. And I think that this game will be closer than people are giving credit for. I really want to pick the Redskins to win this game.
The who?
Correct myself. The Washington football team to win this game because one of the best motivators in the entire NFL is Ron Rivera. And he'll have his team ready to play. I think Dwayne Haskins will keep it close. I think it's going to be a close game. I can't do it, though. I can't pick the Washington football team. Eagles win on a last-minute field goal by Jake Elliott, crushing the football fans' hopes. Man, that's not a very fun game to watch. Las Vegas Raiders at Carolina Panthers. Who you got?
The Raiders are another team where they're hard to get a read on. They made some really good moves. I like how they drafted Henry Ruggs. I like a lot of the moves they made. I think Derek Carr should have a much better season this year. Carolina, they kind of decimated that roster. I do think there's be an improvement with Teddy Bridgewater. I think he fits that team a lot. I like the direction that Matt Rule has that team going. They do have some weapons on offense. They have the best running back on the planet. They have DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson. So they'll score some points. The Raiders' defense isn't that much improved. But I think the Raiders go into Carolina, run the ball well with Josh Jacobs, and they can kind of control that game. I don't think the Carolina defense can stop that running attack from Las Vegas. So I think the Vegas era starts with a win in Carolina.
Yes, I do believe that the Las Vegas Raiders, number one, I am so super excited to see what their stadium entails. It looks like a giant fortress. It looks like something out of the Star Wars movies. So I'm very excited to see that. I do think that they are going to go in there, and I just think they're a better team, and they're going to win.
For me, I got the Vegas Raiders winning this game because I think the Panthers are closer to playing for the number one pick than for the division. The Raiders, I really like what they did this offseason with Henry Ruggs. The addition of him, I think, will be big time for this offense. I think he's one of the missing pieces John Gruden needed, and I think Derek Carr is a better season. Raiders start out 1-0. Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Andrew, does Gardner Minshew get a win here?
I don't see it. I cannot trust. I think right now the Jacksonville Jaguars are the favorite for the number one pick. They easily on paper the worst roster in football. I do think Gardner Minshew kind of has that early Blake Bortles vibe, where like fantasy wise, there's a lot of garbage time points being scored. But I think competitive wise, they lost they cut Leonard Fournette. They lost Jalen Ramsey, AJ Boye. They trade away Yannick Ngakoue. That team is just decimated. They really embraced the rebuild. So I just can't see them beating a team in Indianapolis who is like fundamentally structurally sound and built. I don't like Phillip Rivers. I really don't see the fit there with Phillip Rivers. Like I honestly would rather draft a quarterback or go with Jacoby Brissett this year than get the aging Phillip Rivers. But I do think they have enough and they're a much better roster than Jacksonville. So I think they win the game.
I would love to go with Jacksonville and stay all elite, but I just don't think they're a very good team. Like Andrew said, they're a team that is sort of competing for the number one spot in terms of the draft pick. So I just don't see them winning this week.
I think that the Indianapolis Colts get a win here, but I think the Jaguars, I wouldn't count them out too badly. The Jaguars, I really do think they're not going to be that good of a team. But just no running attack is what's going to kill them. I think that they can really throw the ball. DJ Chark's a good wide receiver on offense. Minshew is a little better than you give credit for, but I just can't see them winning many games this year with the committee they have of running backs. So I don't think any of them are any good. So maybe if they sign Devonta Freeman, like he visited there this week, so maybe if they sign him, maybe they'll get some more wins. But I just can't see them winning many games with this team. Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. Pablo, start us off with your boy Baker Mayfield here.
Let me tell you something here about Baker Mayfield and the Doo-Doo Browns and Odell Beckham Jr. I've already spoken about this team in my, Odell Beckhamitis. The whole team is infected by it. It's more rodent virus and more. It's more highly spread than the COVID-19. It's just more serious, honestly. I just don't want to get into that right now. But I do see them actually winning this week, and it's something I'm not very proud of, but I do think they are going to win. And did you guys hear that latest thing to come out about Odell Beckham Jr.?
I don't think we have to talk about that today.
All I have to say is they're not called the Doo-Doo Brown Giants for nothing. Browns for nothing.
The Giants?
I'm sorry.
Where did the Giants fit into that?
I was looking at Steve. They're not called the Doo-Doo Browns for nothing.
All right, so Browns versus Ravens. I think the Browns are kind of one of these post-hype teams that are going to be better than people give them credit for. They had all the hype in the world last year, trading for Odell Beckham, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. That offense is explosive. Baker Mayfield had a good rookie year, and then they kind of fell flat. They didn't live up to their expectations, and they had a really shitty year. No pun intended, Pablo. But I think this year there's not nearly as much hype around them. People are expecting them to be kind of as mediocre as they were last year. But I like what they're doing. I think Myles Garrett got his payday, and his head is right after bashing Mason Rudolph's head in. I think their defense is underrated. I think their offense is finally going to click under Kevin Stefanski. But the Ravens, after coming off a tough playoff loss to the Titans when they were the best team in football last year, I just don't see them losing the game to start the season 0-1. I think the Ravens just have enough. They have too much talent. They just added J.K. Dobbins to that offense. It's scary. So as long as Lamar Jackson stays healthy and runs like he did last year, then I think Baltimore wins this game.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple here. The Ravens are going to beat the Browns. The Browns will be better, like Andrew said, than they were last year. But the Ravens are just too talented. And I really think this offense is going to be even better than it was last year. So give me the Ravens to start out 1-0 on their revenge tour. Los Angeles Chargers at the Cincinnati Bengals, the debut of Joe Burrow. Who you got in this game?
Pablo, start us off.
You said they're facing the Los Angeles Chargers, correct?
Yep.
Well, Joe Burrow, I'm not sure if I've said many good things about Joe Burrow, but I do think that this is going to be sort of a learning curve. Now, that's not to say that he's going to have a bad game, per se. I just do think that the other team, the Los Angeles Chargers, are just going to outperform them. And I do see them winning. Shout out to Big 34 Rod _. I just think they are a better team, especially at this point. I mean, Joe Burrow, he's a very young and exciting player, but he wasn't drafted in the top 3 or whatever to that team for no reason. That team is just not very good, and I do see the Chargers winning, and I do think the Chargers are going to go very far in the season. This is a team that's very talented, but they always sort of wet the bed late in the season.
The Chargers are always a team who look great on paper, and they're always decimated by injuries throughout the year, and they always, in the past few years, have underperformed. I think that Tyrod Taylor is going to fit a lot better in that offense and do a lot better than people are giving him credit for right now. He's had success in this league. His last stint with the Browns was not good. He got replaced by Baker Mayfield, who was the better quarterback at the time. But I think with Anthony Lynn, he likes Tyrod Taylor. I think he trusts him. I think they'll kind of scheme that offense to fit around him. I love Austin Eckler this year. I think that they will run the ball better than they did last year with Melvin Gordon. So I think that's an upgrade, give him more involved in the game. Their defense is really good on paper. They have a really good secondary. They lost Derwin James, which is really going to hurt. Honestly, it's tough. I think with all those good things I just said about the Chargers, I don't trust them. I think I want to take the Bengals here. I really like Joe Burrow. I hate his situation in the first year because his offensive line sucks. But A.J. Green is back. He's going to be healthy for week 1. I like Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd. I think Joe Burrow does enough, and he has kind of that debut magic where he squeaks out a victory here.
Andrew stole my line there. Give me Joe Burrow here. I think the Chargers are not as good as Pablo is giving him credit for here. And I think that Joe Burrow in his debut, rookie magic, Cam Newton, 450 yards-ish type crap is going to happen here. Joe Burrow and the Bengals win in Burrow's first game, and he continues his magical season from LSU in his home state of Ohio. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady's debut at New Orleans Saints here. Who's getting the win in the battle of the 40-year-old quarterbacks?
Buccaneers are tough this year. I can't get a good read on them. They look so good on paper. Tom Brady, I know he didn't have weapons last year, but he just didn't look like himself last year. I know you could say he has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones and Rob Gronkowski's back with him. So there's all this hype around Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. But the Saints are still a powerhouse. I know they disappoint every year in the playoffs, but they're in the regular season, you're hard to find a better team than the New Orleans Saints. So sorry, Tom, I'm not picking you to win your debut. Sucks to be you. I think the Buccaneers will make a run at the playoffs this year, so they'll be decent enough. They'll be a lot better than they have been in the past. But I think the Saints win week 1.
Well, number one, I'm not sure if you guys can argue this, but right now you just have to look at the two quarterbacks and just say that Tom Brady he's the least. I'm not even going to say he's the least better of the two, but he's just not as good. You get what I'm saying? So
Yes.
it's very tough, man. Very tough because when you look at Tom Brady, he's going to want to overperform with his new Bucs team. You're going to want to see what Gronk has to offer. But I don't think, I really don't know. You can never count on Tom Brady. And you know what? I'm switching up here on Before the Score. And I'm going with the Buccaneers. I do think that the Buccaneers are going to outperform them.
So you go, it's all about the quarterbacks, and the Saints have the better quarterback, but they're going to lose.
Yes, and only because of, just like you said, that rookie magic with Joe Burrow. I'm going to say
Tom Brady is no rookie.
He's
Tom
no
Brady
rookie.
is very
No
far
rookie.
from a rookie.
He's a rookie, but
But
he's
it's that debut magic.
He's a rookie. He's a
I
rookie.
feel you.
For the team.
Yeah.
He's a brand new guy, brand new face.
Tom Brady's played in a lot of big games, but all that is behind him now. He looks ahead, new chapter. To him, this might be one of the biggest games of his entire career, bigger than some of those Super Bowls. He has 6 of them, so it may be up there in between there. So I think that the Buccaneers, Brady always shows out when the lights are the brightest, and you know that this game is going to be one of the most watched games of Week 1. I think Brady and the Buccaneers win Week 1 against the Saints in one of the best games of the week. I think it's going to be a classic, honestly. I think it's going to be a shootout, high scoring. Both quarterbacks play really well. I think Brady and the Buccaneers win Brady's debut. Arizona Cardinals at San Francisco 49ers, the defending NFC champions. Andrew, will Jared be happy after this one?
I think he will be. The Cardinals are getting a lot of buzz this offseason because Kyler Murray is the big breakout star who people are expecting with DeAndre Hopkins and Cliff Kingsbury and Kenyon Drake taking a full-time role, that they're going to fire in all cylinders and keep up with a very, very, very good 49ers team. People forget that the 49ers probably should have won the Super Bowl last year. They had that game in the bag. That defense isn't going to miss a beat. Jimmy G, I think, is going to have a better statistical year than he had last year. I think with Mostert kind of getting majority of the touches now, he can carry the load. hopefully they had Deebo Samuel ready for week 1. There's a chance that he could play. I just think the 49ers as a whole, as a roster, are just well ahead of the Cardinals right now. I think the Cardinals are headed in the right direction, and they should be really fun to watch. But the 49ers should dominate this game.
Well, the 49ers and I, we do not have the prettiest of histories. But the 49ers, they're coming off a Super Bowl appearance. They are clearly among one of the top teams in the league, both offensively and defensively. So I do think that they come up on top here.
I think there's going to be an upset. I think that the Arizona Cardinals take the win in week 1. And I think that because they had the Niners number last year.
Yeah, they did.
And I think that they can just really outscore the Niners in a shootout. I know that the Niners defense is leaps and bounds better, but I think that Cardinals offense is going to be really good this year. The defense may not be able to keep up, but I think week 1, you have your best players out there. Buda Baker just got a big-ass contract, and I think that the Cardinals are going to take week 1. They're going to get their big win of the season. It might be their best win of the season, but it's going to be – they're going to start out 1-0. For Sunday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys at the beautiful new Los Angeles Rams Stadium. Will Jerry Jones be happy after week 1 with his Cowboys performance?
Jerry Jones is a roller coaster. This is a tough game for the Cowboys. The Rams, they had a little bit of a disappointing year last year. They didn't make the playoffs, but they still have Sean McVay, and they still have some rookie life in Cam Akers. They still have Cooper Kupp. They still have Robert Woods, so they should put up points. Don't sleep on Tyler Higbee still. I do think Dallas is actually going to go into LA and still win this game. I think Dak Prescott he's still trying to prove that he's a franchise quarterback, and he's going to put up some points in LA. That Cowboys offense is loaded, and their defense should do enough to keep them in the game. So I think Dallas wins a close game.
I'm going to piggyback on what Andrew has to say. The Dallas Cowboys, they're a very good team. Every year they're always in it until, something tragically always has to happen to that team. But I do think that, like every other year, they're going to start off pretty strong, and they're going to do good.
Best game the Cowboys played last year was the home victory against the Los Angeles Rams, the home slaughter that they took care of the Rams. And I think the Cowboys, it's not going to be a slaughter. It's going to be a good Sunday Night Football game, as it usually is week 1. And I think that the Cowboys start out 1-0, unfortunately, for my Giants. And speaking of my Giants, week 1, Monday Night Football, Giants-Steelers. Will I be happy after week 1?
You start us off. You're the resident Giants fan. You got to start this off.
Giants are not being given any respect by Vegas. 5.5-point underdogs at home. The Joe Judge era starts off with an upset because the Giants are going to start out 1-0, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger was almost a New York Giant. He'll be wishing he was on the Giants' side after this game because the Giants are going to start out 1-0 victory. That's all I got to say about that. Repping Big Blue, and I think we're going to get the W.
Now, I hate making this pick. I do like what the Steelers are doing. Big Ben should have a pretty bounce-back season. But I feel like the Steelers are always that team where they just kind of shit the bed early in the year. They always have this big primetime game early in the year. They always come out flat. They always play in New England in the beginning of the year and lose to the Patriots. I think you look at the Giants last year, and they never had the lineup that they have for week 1. For the whole season, they did not have everyone healthy at the same time. I don't know how the Giants' season is going to play out. I'm not that optimistic of them as a whole. But I think week 1, they come out with enough energy and enough firepower on offense to kind of outscore the Steelers. The Steelers are one of the best defensive teams in the league, but the Giants just on offense have so many ways to beat you. And I just don't trust Big Ben taking a year off, coming back and being exactly how he was when he left, when he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league in 2018. So I think the Giants win in a pretty surprisingly high-scoring game against that Pittsburgh defense.
Well, I'm going to surprise you guys here with this pick. I'm not going to go with the Giants. I'm going to go with Big Ben.
The Steelers are the favorites, so it's not that surprising.
Okay, but you guys are clearly on the Giants train for this game. I'm going to go with the Steelers here. The Steelers, Big Ben, he's a very, very experienced quarterback. He's a guy who, through adversity, has always proved that he can still hang in this tough league, regardless of what players are there and what players aren't there. I just see them being the New York Football Giants.
Our final game of week 1, you got the Tennessee Titans at the Denver Broncos, a 10-10 Monday Night Football doubleheader. the game you're going to be sleepy for work the next day for. So who you got here?
See, this is it's going to be very late, and not a lot of people are going to watch this game probably because it's one of those throw-in second Monday night games. I think the Broncos win this game. I really, really, really like what the Broncos are doing this year. I don't know how far they'll go this year, but I think with Drew Lock in his first year as a full-time starter, and all the additions they made on offense, I think they're gonna outscore the run-heavy Tennessee Titans. I think if the Broncos go up pretty early with their offense, that the Titans aren't built to come back from that. So I think in Denver, I think they win the game.
Denver Broncos. I'm definitely not picking the Denver Broncos here. I just don't like their team. So I'm just going to pick against them this week.
Jadeveon Clowney chose the Titans, which may be the biggest win in Tennessee Titans history right there. So I'm going to pick them, actually, because I think spirits are high. Mike Vrabel's a master motivator, and I think that the Tennessee Titans will shock people who are picking Denver week 1. I love the Denver Broncos. I love what they're doing this year, but this is strength on strength, offense on defense, and I think the Titans are a better defense and the Broncos will have an offense at least week 1. So give me the Titans to start out 1-0 in a close game. And that's all we have for week 1. So those are our picks. First time we did that in a long time. Definitely a lot different than things were last time we did it. We're running a little low on time here, so let's just get a Super Bowl pick, and then we'll go to questions. This is etched in stone. You can't change this.
Yes.
So who's going to the Super Bowl here?
Pablo, are you thinking – do you have something, or are you just thinking too hard about this right now? You need a minute.
I'm thinking right. Actually, yeah, I'm still thinking.
All right, I'll start it off because I did think of this a little bit earlier. A team that I'm really focusing on to win the Super Bowl. So I think from the NFC, I think the Saints make it. So you look at the top dogs in the NFC. The 49ers, I think, have there should be the front runners to win the NFC. I don't trust them enough in the playoffs. I don't trust Jimmy G that much. I think the Saints have a little bit more to prove that they're not going to fall flat in the playoffs. I don't trust the Packers at all. I don't trust anybody from the East. I don't trust the Vikings. So I think the Saints make the playoffs. I think they win the division. I think they make the Super Bowl. And from the AFC, I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to kind of finish that missing piece. They're going to get over the hurdle, as you say, this year. So the 2018, I'm going to go a little off track here. The 2018 Chiefs were the talk of the league. Patrick Mahomes lighting the league on fire. And then they fall flat in the playoffs and they lose a heartbreaker to the Patriots. The next year, there's not as much there was plenty expectation for them, and they kind of lived up to it. And last year, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I think the Ravens are kind of taking that model of being the flashy new team who bursts on the scene and then kind of disappoints in the playoffs. And then the next year is when they're really locked and loaded and know how to win.
So I kind of agree with you, Andrew. I do agree with the Saints. I just feel like that conference just isn't as good as the other conference in terms of being very competitive. They might be competitive, but not really towards the top. There's not really that upper echelon of teams in that conference. But I do see the Chiefs returning, and I do see the Chiefs repeating as champions. I can see Chiefs, Saints. It's going to be an amazing type of game, amazing feel. Whenever you have a team going for 2 in a row or going for back-to-back world championships, it's going to be super exciting. Patrick Mahomes is going to do it again. He was my pick last year. Patrick Mahomes is the guy. Patrick Mahomes is the face of the National Football League, and they will win.
In the AFC, give me the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. I know that's boring, that's chalk, but they picked up Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I really do love, and I think that offense will even be better than it was last year. Giving the Chiefs start off on the AFC. In the NFC, I don't want to make this pick, but I have to make this pick. Your mind's maybe going somewhere in Dallas, but it's not going to be them. It's going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going to the Super Bowl. Tom Brady's first year, Bruce Arians. I was more on Andrew's side with the Saints, and then the Buccaneers signed Leonard Fournette. And I think that gets them over the hump because I didn't like Ronald Jones. Leonard Fournette, I'm a Leonard Fournette truther. I think he's a great running back, and I think that he's going to have a great year with the Buccaneers, even if he starts out slow. So give me the Buccaneers, give me the Chiefs, and give me Tom Terrific to get a Super Bowl win here. I think he beats Patrick Mahomes. Buccaneers defeat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I'm calling the shot right now. just experience wins out. And I think that Bruce Arians, Brady, Gronk, people who have won it before will help propel that defense, a very good defense, by the way, to a Super Bowl win right here. And now let's talk about our questions before we end the show. Right on cue, Nate Pucciarello, he says, fuck Tom Brady. I'm still not over that shit. Well, it's going to be a long season for you, Nate. The next question comes from Blaron Lutzfew, and he wants to know who's leading the league in receiving yards.
Ooh, very good question. Very good question. I'll tell you who it's not going to be. It's not going to be Odell Beckham Jr. It's not going to be OBJ. It's not going to be Doodoo Brown himself. I personally think, and I brought up his name earlier, and I said it in a weird accent, Julio Jones will be the guy to lead in receiving yards this season.
I hate agreeing with Pablo, but I think receiving yards wise, I don't think it has to. I think the easy bet for me is Julio Jones. You look at the top guys like Michael Thomas. He's more of he's gonna lead the league in catches again. He'll have a ton of touchdowns, but I don't think you have enough explosive long touchdowns like Julio's capable of. The only threat with Julio is that Calvin Ridley kind of breaks out and takes some yards away from him. But just yards wise, it's hard to bet against Julio Jones.
Okay, I'll go against the grain here. Give me A.J. Brown to lead the league in receiving yards. This guy came onto the scene in the second half of the year. He was phenomenal after that, and he gets a whole season with his quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. And it's usually somebody weird leads the league in receiving yards. I'm taking A.J. Brown here. Next question we have comes from I don't know who it comes from. I forget. Sorry. It comes from Charlie, Richard's brother. Who is worth a first-round pick in fantasy football?
A running back. Honestly, you look at in fantasy, you can go Michael Thomas, you can go Devontae Adams, you can get cute like that. You can try to go Patrick Mahomes or something, but take one of the running backs. Don't overthink it. Take Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, guys like Dalvin Cook, etc. Kenyon Drake, even Austin Eckler. You can't go wrong with a lot of these running backs.
No input, Pablo?
Personally, I've never had much success in fantasy leagues, but I do always find that when I do lose, it's not because I have, a lot of running backs, because I feel like running backs, there might not be too many dominant running backs, but there's always pretty good running backs on your team. So I do think it's very important to have a good quarterback, in my opinion. So I personally think it's Patrick Mahomes. If you have an opportunity to draft a guy like that, you have to go.
Well, Pablo, you just told everybody why you're not very good at fantasy football. Do not pick Patrick Mahomes in the first round. Please do not do that. Pick a running back, because running backs are a dime a dozen, good ones at least, and you need to hit on as many as possible. First overall pick, if you're not picking Christian McCaffrey, I really don't know what to tell you. You lost the league already, because that's just dumb. Next question we have comes from I'm on the computer today, so I don't have the names of the questions. My bad here.
For the Cleveland Browns.
What team – the Cleveland Browns one, I was going to skip that one because Pablo –
Okay, so Osei Bonsu had the next one.
Oh, okay. You got it here. Thank you. Osei Bonsu, what team do you think can make a surprise Super Bowl run?
See, we start off the football segment with this game and this team. I think they are a little bit slept on. Shout out Dave Stolte. I think the Falcons are built to kind of compete in a sneaky way. They're in a tough NFC South with the Buccaneers and the Saints, so that kind of is their biggest hurdle. But I think this year, I like what they did with Todd Gurley. I think their defense will hold up enough where that offense should be one of the 5 best offenses in the league. And I'm not going to pick them to make the Super Bowl or anything, but I think there's someone who not a lot of people are talking about who could make a run at an NFC Championship game or something.
Well, I'm going to have to go here with the Chargers. I really do like their team. I like their look. I like everything about this team. If they were in San Diego, they would be hanging out with the San Diego Padres all the time. They wouldn't even be caring about the social distancing. I do think that they are a very good team, and it's going to surprise a lot of people when they are near the top of that division.
I think it's going to piss off Pablo, this answer, because I think it's the Cleveland Browns. I think they can make a good run this year. Post-hype, I think that if Baker Mayfield has a good year, the Browns will have a good year. They still have a really good offense. They have a great defense. Kevin Stefanski will run the ball with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, and I think this team has a chance to make some noise. Our final question, of course, on our football show, we're going to end it with some hockey. And PK Patel wants to know if the Philadelphia Flyers are the worst number 1 seed of all time.
No, I think the worst number 1 seed of all time was the Lightning when they got swept with the Blue Jackets. So I'll cut Tarek some slack.
And they won a playoff series, so how can they be the worst number 1 of all time? But that's all we got for Before the Score, episode number 34. Enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. We're ecstatic. Football is back. Pablo may not be because the Yankees are bad now. He's talking about football all the time. But we're back Before the Score, NFL Week 1. Enjoy, everybody, and listen next week.